Alright, today we are covering 8-7, solving ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we're going to factor trinomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c and solve equations of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. When we factor trinomials in this form, we're finding two integers just like we did before, m and p, with a sum of b, that middle number, but this time a product of a and c. So because we have this front number, we multiply that with the last number and find factors that are the product of a and c. So we are going to rewrite our equation using those factors in the middle, mx and px, and then factor by grouping. So we're going to look at our first example. I have 5x squared plus 27x plus 10. So I have factors of 5 times 10, which is 50. That's AC. And sum of factors. So I have 1 and 50. That's going to make 51. 2 and 25. That gives me 27. So there is our B. We're trying to get 27. Are there more factors of 50? Sure, there's a ton of them. But do I need to keep finding them? No, because I already found my answer. So now we do our rewrite. 5x squared plus 25x plus 2x plus 10. So I've rewritten 27x as our two factors, 25 and 2. And it is deliberate that I chose to put 25 and 5 here together and 2 over here with 10. And it's because we're going to do factoring by grouping, and I knew that 5 and 2 don't have any common factors. So what I'm going to do is factor out by this pair and the other pair. So I have 5x squared and 25x, and then 2x and 10. These two have in common 5 and x. So we factor out 5x. We're left with 1x and the number 5. And what our other pair has in common is 2. So I factor out 2, and I have x plus 5 left. This is always the goal with factor by grouping, to get this same pair twice. So then we rewrite as 5x plus 2, those front factors, and then x plus 5. So this is factor by grouping that we did here. All right, other side. So this one, I have 4x squared plus 24x plus 32. And looking at that, I think this isn't going to be very much fun, because 4 times by 32 is going to be a big number. It's going to have tons of factors. So what I'm looking at first is, do all of these have anything in common that I could factor out first? And I noticed that 4 and 24 and 32 are all factors of 4. So I'm going to start by factoring out 4. And what that will give me is x squared plus 6x plus 8. And this is something that's much easier for us to factor. This goes back to what we learned yesterday. So I can go over and make my chart. Factors of 8, sum needs to equal 6. So 1 and 8, that makes 9, so that's not it. 2 and 4, that makes 6. So this will come down x plus 2, x plus 4. Using those factors here. And that's our final answer, just with that 4 factored out. Now in this case, I'm looking at my numbers and knowing that I can't factor something out of all of them. 24, 22, and 3 don't all have a similar factor. So we're back to doing our A times C. So factors of 24 times by 3, which is 72, and a sum of negative 22. So I know that both of my values will be negative in order for me to get that positive end value but negative in the middle. So the first one I'm going to do is 2, because I know that 72 is divisible by 2, and I know for certain already that 1 and 72 is not going to make 22. So if I divide that by 22, I'm going to get 34. No, 36. And negative 2 and negative 36 are going to give me negative 38. So that's no good. And I know that I multiplied it by 3, so it's going to be divisible by 3. It's going to give me 24. That makes negative 27, so that's not quite where we're going. What about 4? So if I put 4 in, 72 divided by 4 is 18. And negative 4 and negative 18 is going to give me that negative 22 that I need. So we rewrite as 24x squared minus 4x minus 18x plus 3. And I'm going to come over here because I need some more space. Okay, so what can I factor out of each of my pairs here? Because we're factoring by grouping. So the first one I can factor out 4. And then I'm going to have 4x. Sorry. So then I'm going to have 6x minus 1. And remember here, the goal is to make these match. I'm pretty close here. I can see that if I factor out 3, I will get 6. But this is negative and this is positive. So in order to get my sign to change, I'm actually going to factor out negative 3. And that will change this to positive 6x and the second number to negative 1. And that will make my pair the same. So I just factored out a negative to get that match. And then I bring down my 2 front factors to make one pair, and that match to make the other. 4x minus 3, 6x minus 1. All right, so now we're moving on to factoring 3x squared plus 7x minus 5. So I'm going to look at my factors of 3 times by negative 5, which is negative 15. And they need to equal 7 when we add them. So we'll try a couple different ones. I have 1 and 15. which is going to give me negative 14. If I do that opposite, if I did negative 1 and positive 15, I'd get positive 14. And then my other factors of 15 are just 3 and 5, which gives me 2 and negative 2. So I'm not getting 7 anywhere here. This is what we call a prime, which means there's no way to factor it down any further. Last one we're going to practice is using this method to solve an equation. I'm not sure if this is the problem on your paper because I'm doing this from home, and so I'm not sure if it's the same one that you guys had. So if it's not, cross it out and do this one. If it is, then great. So we are solving 2x squared plus 9x plus 9 equals 0. So we're going to start doing that factors of a and c multiplied of 2 times 9, which is 18. And then our sum of those two should equal 9. So factors of 18, we've got 1 and 18. That's 19. And 2 and 9, which we can see from above, which is 11. And 3 and 6, which will give us that 9 that we want. So I rewrite in that mx/px form. So just changing that middle 9x into 6x, 3x. And notice that I, once again, have switched, even though 3 was here first, I've switched it so that it's going to factor out easier. You may not be able to do this right away. It can take some practice. So if you're noticing that when you're factoring you're not getting the same pairs, it's a good idea to try and switch the placement of those x's and see if you can get a better factor. So we're going to factor by grouping. And what I'm going to come up with here is I can factor out 2x out of this one. And that leaves me with x plus 3. And then I can factor 3 out of this one. All right. So my pairs are 2x plus 3 and x plus 3 equals 0. And we use the same method as last time to solve these. So I have 2x plus 3 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. This one I'm going to do first because it's easier. Subtract 3 from both sides, x equals negative 3. And this one just has one extra step. So we subtract 3, and then I have 2x equals negative 3, and then I divide both sides by 2, and I have x equals negative 3 halves. So I have two solutions. And what will happen a lot when you do these ax squared is that sometimes you'll get one or two fractions for your answers. And that is factoring ax squared plus bx plus c.